So I made a bunch of rendering experiments using modded Minecraft. These rendering experiments look pretty cool, and I haven't personally seen anything quite like them before. The first rendering experiment I would like to show is orthographic projection. Orthographic projection can be best described as if you stood really far away from an object and zoomed in. The effects of this projection make it look like objects that are far away are just as close as objects that are close up. This looks pretty funky, and I honestly like this effect. I had a few issues with this rendering experiment. One of the issues that I had was the HUD disappearing when I would activate this projection. Another issue I had was the entire view being completely upside down. Getting the HUD to synchronize with the game and also keeping the game right side up was really challenging, and I even spent a whole day working on fixing the HUD, but I eventually managed. The next rendering experiment I would like to show is one where it turns all the solid opaque blocks in the world into the block that you're looking at. This is rendering only, meaning the blocks aren't actually being changed, they're just being changed visually, but I think it is a cool looking effect and quite the gimmick. The next one I would like to show is one where it only renders the one block that the player is looking at. As you can see, even blocks that are completely in the ground, such as this one right here, show all sides of the block. This is notable because Minecraft typically doesn't render sides of blocks which are not visible, such as ones that are in the ground or in a wall. I had to manually activate those sides when activating this rendering experiment. I also had an issue where the sides of the blocks would be really dark because they wouldn't be getting any light values. This issue was fixed by forcing the lighting to be at full skylight value for all sides of the block. This rendering experiment only shows one kind of block. This is very similar to the previous one, but it shows many blocks instead of just the one you're looking at. There are rendering artifacts in the background, and that's due to how Minecraft updates chunks. It tends to update chunks in the background far less often than ones that are in the foreground, it seems. This is a really cool one. This is shading that is completely flat and without shadows. Everything is rendered at peak brightness, and it gives a very retro look to Minecraft. This one was pretty simple to get working, and I'm pretty happy with the result. This particular one makes every block that is visible show up at a random offset from 0 to the number that is defined in rendering intensity. The higher the number, the higher range of positions the blocks can appear in, making it look much more chaotic. If you set this number to 0, then the effect is turned off. The next one is the same effect, but instead of having random positions, you have random scales. Now this one is interesting because you can scale it to be smaller or scale it to be larger. So this one is the same as the previous two, but random rotations instead. As you can see, it looks very chaotic, but this is not the most chaotic out of all my rendering experiments. The last rendering experiment that is very chaotic is all of the previous three combined. So as you can see, it is very laggy and sometimes doesn't work properly, but if I set the render distance to be very low, you can see that it makes blocks freak out like crazy. I can also lower the intensity to go to the negatives, which makes blocks scale really big and move around very chaotically. The last rendering experiment that I worked on was really simple to enable. I simply had to disable a Boolean value, which allowed blocks and faces that are behind others to show up in front or out of order. That's all of my rendering experiments, and I had a lot of fun making them. You can mess around with them in the link in the description. Thanks for watching.